one salam to Hussain alayhi salam, and what a person can achieve. There was an alim who said that one day, one of our friends, he passed away, and we went and we buried him in the graveyard. Says the next day, I saw him in my dream, and he was in a bit of distress. I said to him, what happened? He says, there's a few things that I fell short on, and I'm being held. He says, if you can do some a'mal for me in the dunya there, says, do some a'mal for me, help me through this. So this alim says, I came away, I did some a'mal, I held majlis, I recited Quran, I did dua, all of these things. Says some days later, says again I saw this friend of mine in my dream. And I said to him that I saw that now he was at ease, he was sitting on a throne, he was relaxed. I said to him that, did my a'mal work? He says, yes, they helped a little bit. But he says, but the day after I came to you in your dream, says there was a lady who was brought to this graveyard and she was buried. And through the barakah of her entering this graveyard, says all of our azab was lifted. Says, who was this lady? Says, I don't know who she is, but all I know is that Imam al-Hussein himself comes and visits her 3 times every day. This alim says, I woke up from my dream. I said, who is this lady? I inquired, they said, yes, there's some old lady that died, and her husband, he lives somewhere on the outskirts. Says, I've tried to find my way to the house, and I went, and there was this small, modest mud hut of a house. And I went in and I said, your wife passed away recently? He said, yes. He says, I'm here to offer condolences. Then afterwards he says, I asked him, was your wife some alima? He says, no. He says, was your wife an abida, like she achieved certain maqamat? He says, no, she was just a normal lady, a housewife. He says, did your wife go on the ziyarat of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam? He says, no, it just so happens that we could not ever afford the ziyarat of Imam al-Hussain. Says we couldn't afford it. Says I wanted to take her, but we could never afford it. Says, but then what is it that your wife was doing that Hussain alayhi salam himself is coming to visit her in the grave? He says, look, there's only one thing I can think of. Says, we couldn't afford to go to Karbala, but since I got married, I used to see my wife do one thing. Says that after her salah, she would go onto the roof of the house, face towards Karbala, and say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Says that this is the reason that Hussain alayhi salam is visiting her every single day. You do a small thing for Abi Abdullah and see what Hussain alayhi salam will do for you. You turn your attention towards him just one moment and see what Hussain alayhi salam will do. Every atom is at their disposal. So then why is it that this nation did what they did to them? Why is it that this nation oppressed them and killed them? Why is it that Hussain alayhi salam's body, that body that is celestial, was trampled under the hooves of the horses? Not just one, not just once. Your Imam says in Ziyarat al-Nahiya, says, Hawayta ila al-ardi jarihan tata'uka al-khuyulu bihawafiriha. Hussain, when you fell from your horse injured to the earth of Karbala, the horses began to trample your body. Abu Abdullah's body was not just trampled once, it was trampled once before his death and once after his death. Abu Abdullah, his body lie there. Today, a father was buried. Or yesterday, you went and you buried a loved one. I was speaking to the son of Marhum outside. He went, he buried his father. But you know, this is the beauty of the madhab of Ahlul Bayt, that no matter how great the pain is, we come and we bring it to Bab al-Hussain alayhi salam. And this is what Imam al-Radha told Rayyan ibn Shabib. يا ابن شبيب إن كنت باكيا للشيء فابكي للحسين. Says if you want to cry over anything in your life, you've lost a loved one, you've lost something in your life, you haven't got somewhere that you wanted to be in life. Says in kunta bakiyan lishay, if you want to cry over anything in life, فَالْكِلِ الْحُسَيْنِ, cry over Hussein. Why? فَإِنَّهُ ضُبِهَ كَمَا يُذْبَهُ الْكَبْشِ, for he was slaughtered in the way that sheep are slaughtered. The funeral happened, but how did the funeral of Abi Abdullah happen? Sajjad comes to the body of Imam al-Hussein on the 13th of Muharram, finds Bani Asad standing there, says, what is it that you are standing here for? They said, we had come in order to bury the bodies, but we don't know whose body is whose. All of the heads have been removed from these bodies. Sajjad says, I will tell you whose body is whose. This is the body of my brother Ali al-Akbar. You see that body with the arms severed that lies on the banks of the Furat. That is the body of my uncle Abbas. And you see this body that is surrounded and covered with stones, the limbs that have become separated from this body with the broken chest. This is the body of my father Abi Abdullah. And they say to him, who are you? He says, I am Ali ibn al-Hussein. Sajjad alayhi salam gathers the bodies of the shuhada. He buries them in one pit. Then he digs a grave for Abu Abdullah. And now he turns towards Bani Asad, says, Bani Asad, do you have some sort of mat or a cloth? They say, why, Imam? We heard that the shaheed does not require kafan. He says, I don't want to give kafan to my father. But you see, after the death of my father, they came and they hacked the body of Abi Abdullah, and then they ran horses over it. My father's body is in no state to be lifted in one piece. I will take him piece by piece, place him on this mat and lower him into the earth. Imam al-Sajjad gathers the parts of the body of Imam al-Hussein, and now he begins to look across the earth as if looking for something precious. They say to him, Imam, what are you looking for? He says, when my father's body was being looted, one mal'oon came. He tried to remove the ring of my father from his hand, but the ring wouldn't come off. So he took his dagger and he severed the finger of my father, Abi Abdullah. I'm looking for that finger. He finds the finger, he places it with the body, and now Sajjad begins to walk over the earth, looking towards the ground, looking for something precious. They say to him, Imam, what are you looking for now? He says, I need to fulfill the final wasiyah of my father, Abu Abdullah. He said to me before he left, Sajjad, before you go, when you come to bury me, make sure you bury my 6-month-old child on my chest. I'm looking for the body of my brother Ali Asghar, that Ali that was buried on the day of Ashura, that Ali that was raised on a spear on the 11th of Muharram. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ما تم يا حسين.